Can this supplement in fact be a cardio miracle? Let's talk about that.
Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show.
Well, hey there, folks. Brian Nichols here on the Brian Nichols Show, and thank you for joining us on, of course, another fun-filled episode. I am, as always, your humble host, joining you live from our BNP studios here in lovely Eastern Indiana, and to discuss, yes, if in fact this supplement can in fact be a cardio miracle. Joining us here to discuss that and more, John Helwlett. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show.
Thank you, Brian. It's delightful to be with you. I love your cause and I love your passion.
John, thank you for joining us. Really looking forward to this conversation and looking forward to discussing this miracle supplement. But before we do that, do us a favor. Introduce yourself here to the Brian Nichols Show audience.
Well, Brian, I'm an old guy. I've got a huge resume, but essentially I spent years in sales, and a lot of people kind of put me up there with the great salespeople in America. I was leading agent for Sun Life of Canada, life insurance company in 1993 worldwide. Sold over $1 billion worth of insurance in my career through the 80s and 90s. Did a lot of things, raised a lot of money for charities, churches, causes, politics, you name it. And so about 17 years ago, I had an emergency appendectomy, and that threw me into the hospital for a surgery. And in the process, everything that possibly could have gone wrong went wrong. And so ultimately, they did the surgery, sent me home, but didn't realize that the surgeon had inadvertently nicked a vein. So middle of the night, I wake up to get up to go to the bathroom, and I collapse. And next thing I know, I'm in an ambulance flying down the streets of my hometown in the middle of the night to get to the hospital. And then the emergency really started. So I'd lost 5 points of blood. They threw me up in intensive care. My lungs started filling up. I felt like I was suffocating. I kept saying to the nurse, I can't breathe. This is a serious issue. And finally, the nurses changed. The new nurse came in, read the chart, and said, "Oh, didn't they give you the muscle relaxant?" And he runs out of the room, comes back, sticks me with the muscle relaxant. So I was able to breathe, and I was able to survive that one. And then I was eventually transferred downstairs. The in-house cardiologist says, your heart has gone crazy. Your EKG is bad. Your blood pressure is bad. Your pulse is bad. We need to send you down for a lithium CAT scan. And so even though I was still internally bleeding, they were going to stick me in the nuclear tube and do that. And down, literally on the way down, and I don't know if this patriotic has a religious themed program. You had some great pastors on, but literally the Spirit of the Lord said to me, don't do this. Don't get this lithium red dye contrast test. And so I refused at the 11th hour as they're sticking the needles in my arm that I wasn't going to do it. And that led to a quite heated discussion with me being almost delirious after 48 hours of almost dying a couple of times. So they take me back to my room. As I get into the room, the nurse was hooking up another IV. And I said, I don't want any more stuff. Just leave me alone, and I'm going to try to figure this out myself. And the nurse says, well, the cardiologist says you need to take this prescription. And I go, what is it? And she said, Luxem. And I said, what is that? And she said, well, it's a blood thinner. And I said, I'm internally bleeding. Why would I need thinner blood? I would bleed to death. And so I caused this big fervor. I kicked everybody out of my room. And then through prayer and energy, worker friend came and gave me some cayenne pepper and some frankincense, essential oils. We determined where that little nick was. And through the power of prayer and faith, the bleeding stopped. So when I got out, I decided, oh, well, okay, that I was bruised from head to foot. I was absolutely horrible situation after this 72-hour nightmare in the hospital. And I had like yourself, Brian, my father died at 62, my grandfather at 66, my uncle at 57, my cousin at 49, all of heart disease. So I was a walking time bomb at the time, 65 or 55 years old. I'm sorry, that was 17 years ago. So yeah, that's right, about 54, 55. And I decided, you know what? I've made millions in the insurance business. I'm kind of sick of Bill Clinton changing the tax law on me every time I do estate planning, all these crooked people. And so I started looking for solutions to heart disease, and that led me to the Nobel Prize being awarded for nitric oxide in 1998. And in the Nobel Prize, back when the Nobel Prize meant something, basically said, nitric oxide reverses heart disease. And they actually wrote a book called No More Heart Disease. And
Wow.
The head of Stanford wrote a book called The Cardiovascular Cure. Well, surprisingly, the Stanford book and a product attached to it quickly was bought up by a pharmaceutical company. And so they were kind of quiet after coming out from a credentialed situation with Stanford. But the No More Heart Disease kind of stuck, which was Louis Attenborough, who was part of the Nobel Prize. And so when I read the book and then I started taking a nitric oxide supplement, my blood pressure went to normal, my triglycerides went down, my pulse went down, my blood glucose, my A1C, all the factors that you look at. And I've been a big guy myself. You talked about your weight loss journey. Ironically, today I'm on the 6th day of a cardio miracle fast, which has been amazing. My dear friend, Dr. Christiane Northrup, one of the great advocates for freedom and health in America, she told me she did a 5-day cardio miracle fast a month ago. She said it was a breeze. It was the best fast she ever did. So I said, you know what? I've done a couple days. I'm going to go for it. So I'm going to go ahead and do a 7-day. And it's been amazing. You lose about 10 or 15 pounds. You have to be pretty close to the bathroom. But the reality, it's a great cleansing situation. But long story short, I ended up leaving the insurance business, going to work for a company that had a nitric oxide supplement. I helped them go to $100 million with my ideas and things that I was doing. And then I said, well, we want to keep progressing. We want to take over. We want to help provide real competition and prevention to cardiology. And the company says, well, you're making a lot of money. And what if this research doesn't work? And I'm like, if it doesn't work, I don't want to do it. I only want to be involved in things that work for the solution. So even though I was making a very handsome, 7-figure income, now in my next career, after 3 or 4 years, I walked away and decided, I guess I'm going to have to do this myself. So I kind of proclaim myself as something from before your age, and that's the Johnny Appleseed of nitric oxide. So I'm out trying to tell the story truthfully, honestly, and then 9 years ago, we developed Cardio Miracle after, not because of any innate formulation genius of myself, but literally as a collaboration with the spirit, with my intuition, with a brain that had been studying it for about 5 years at that time. And having talked to the smartest people in the world, I connected the dots, and a lot of people said, oh, you're a genius. How could you do this? Why? You don't have no credibility, no credentials. And I said, look, it works. And so I was committed, Brian, to test it on a scientific basis, because I had lost all confidence in the medical community. Mm-hmm. And so we actually have published science that is indisputable on this product in the last couple of years. And in the middle of COVID, all of a sudden we found ourselves, the nitric oxide was the greatest solution that was used in Argentina or Brazil or in Israel or in Italy. Wow. They were started giving people arginine, which ended up helping them breathe better. And then they were, not losing oxygen. So they didn't fortunately end up on a ventilator, which ended up killing people, because the whole process of the treatment for this pandemic, bioweapon, whatever you want to call it, the whole treatment was lethal and very unfortunate. And I know that many of your followers were disappointed. No family members, no friends who are dying, and they're dying. We found that the ingredients in Cardio Miracle were substantial. They were like all of the suggested protocols taken to the 4th or 5th times. I breezed through 2 minor incidents of 48 hours of one with a small sore throat, and then another one with feeling fatigued for 2 days. But that's all that ever happened to me. And I've been overweight for years. I'm under a lot of stress. I run a big business, got a lot of things going, and yet my blood pressure the other day was shockingly 104/62.
How about that?
That's hard to believe. I know.
No kidding.
It's the lowest it's ever been, which is shocking. And but my blood pressure, I have not been on a prescription medication on a daily basis since 2004. So
Wow.
do I believe in nitric oxide? Absolutely. Do I believe in vitamin D3 and supplemental C and E and all of these things, and turmeric and estrogen? We have 53 ingredients in my formula. People say, why so many? And I said, because they all can help replace and build the immune system and do all the cardiovascular benefits. A lot of people love the fact taking a simple drink once or twice a day versus taking 500 capsules. Drinks are more absorbable to the body, so they're more efficacious. You can only put so much material in a capsule. We have 10.5 grams and 53 ingredients, all of the finest organic fruits, vegetables, and components, amino acids, arginine, citrulline, ornithine. We have astragalus root, panax ginseng, quercetin. We have turmeric. We have all of these great things in one version, and the results we get from our customers is shocking and very, very, very rewarding.
Wow. So a lot to unpack there. To start off, though, I think your average person listening to this right now, they're like, well, how do I know, right? How do I know I can trust this solution when it's not being promoted by Pfizer, by Moderna, by Johnson & Johnson? And I think right now, though, maybe that's not your average person listening to this show, right? But for a lot of folks, especially over the past 3 years with the advent of COVID, they looked to the pharmaceutical industry to be the answers to a lot of the problems. But I think what we're starting to uncover, and this is across the board, is that the pharmaceutical industry really doesn't have a vested interest in actually solving the problems, but rather exacerbating the problems to continue pushing pills on people, pushing shots or injections on people in order to keep the cash flow going. Whereas what you're offering is quite literally a solution to the problem, number one. Number two, that heart disease is, I think, the number one killer in the United States, right? So not only is this one of the main areas that we need to focus on, but it's something that the main pharmaceutical companies, they'll give you the Band-Aid, but they're never actually stopping the bleeding. So for the folks who are listening to the audience, maybe they're a little weary of going ahead and jumping on board to a solution that's not sponsored by Pfizer, which I don't know, that might be the only thing that Pfizer doesn't sponsor. But do us a favor, go through what is nitric oxide, and specifically, how does it help with the overall implementation of helping a healthy heart?
Well, when the Nobel Prize was announced, it basically determined that nitric oxide, it was the third essential gas that regulates every system in the body. It's produced in the lining of the artery called the endothelial lining. And when the body is stimulated through exercise and through various components, beets, spinach, kale, amino acids from red meat and shellfish, all of those things, when the body gets amino acids into the system, that stimulates the lining of the artery to produce nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is a gas that flashes along your arterial wall, and it helps modulate and regulate the nutrition that goes from the bloodstream to the actual cell. And it even helps modulate how the balancing of oxygen and carbon dioxide occurs in our respiratory system. So nitric oxide there's now like 200,000 studies on its importance, but it's now kind of like the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Coast Guard, and Space Force all in one. It's the first responder. It was called the miracle molecule by Science Magazine in 1992. It was called the spark of life in the cell at the University of Florida in Gainesville. It is a remarkable thing. And so what I learned from my own health as I reversed my own cardiovascular problems with nitric oxide supplement was you needed to have arginine. You needed to have citrulline. And then as the years evolved, there was some benefit to supporting that with a secondary pathway, beetroot powder, or Tahitian noni fruit, or kale or spinach, those things also. I mean, so if you eat a bushel full of any of those items, you're going to stimulate a secondary pathway of nitric oxide. But if you have arginine, citrulline, ornithine, etc., then that's going to stimulate nitric oxide more effectively and for a longer period of time. So I, just being an insurance financial guy, I just connected all the dots and said, well, if this is good, then this should be good. And then when I talk to a PhD in pharmacology, they'd say, well, that's a great idea. How did you think of that? And I said, I don't know. It just made sense. Most people have blinders in their various expertise. And so they're somebody comes in from the outside who knows nothing and says, well, why don't you do this and this? And they go, oh my goodness, that's shocking. So when I developed Cardio Miracle, my premise was I left a mega $1 million insurance career, lifetime of effort. I wasn't interested in the money, even though I needed to start over. I started over from scratch twice in the last 15 years, but I was interested in helping humanity. I was interested in a solution. I was interested in having the best of the best. We're now on our 7th version of Cardio Miracle in 9 years. And that's because I continually update it, improve it as the emerging science occurs. And then now we're fighting for our life against a tyrannical government, a broken shipping system, international embargoes, all this other kind of stuff. So it's a real challenge. But rather than us, everything getting less of the valuable ingredients and costing more and everything else, I put in a more efficient sweetener so I don't have as much powder in my drink. Because when you taste these ingredients, arginine, citrulline, grapeseed extract, quercetin, it just tastes horrible. I mean, nobody would drink it in their right mind. So we had to make it taste decent, and we've been very successful at doing that. And in the process, we put in organic beets, carrots, coconut water, raspberries, blackberry, all these organic fruits, acerola cherry. And so the flavoring is kind of a mild punch type of fruit, lemonade type of drink. But it's got 3 of the best ingredients in the world. And so it gets right into the bloodstream, and our reaction is phenomenal. So nitric oxide heals inflammation in your body. And we were able to prove in a clinical lab, top in the world, that our product extended nitric oxide safely for over 24 to 36 hours. Nobody had ever been able to prove over 4, 5, 6 hours. So that's why our product works so well, is it's sustained safely. And because I put in a dozen expensive antioxidants, it reduces the free radicals in the system at the same time, which the scientists are still shaking their head saying, we never had any idea that could be done. So we feel very fortunate. But really now, Brian, when you have Dr. Judy Mikovits and Dr. David Martin, and you have Dr. Brian Artis, and you have Dr. Christiane Northrup and Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, and on, Ty Bollinger, Robert Scott Bell, Mike Adams, any of these people, they all have a strong personal situation with Cardio Miracle, and they're advising it to people, primarily now for those who've suffered from protocol injury, which we know is significant, for people who are concerned about myocarditis, because again, this won the Nobel Prize for helping to reverse heart disease, not Cardio Miracle, but the nitric oxide science. Our science supports that we're the finest delivery, safest delivery of nitric oxide in the world. So let the Nobel Prize say one thing. We're saying we're the best of the nitric oxide sustainers in the way we deliver it. And so that's why we believe people are having such remarkable results when they get their blood test work done in 69. I mean, I get texts every night. People say, oh, this level dropped 50 points in the last 3 weeks. And another one said, this level dropped. We got to be careful with medical claims, even though we're proving stuff every day scientifically, because we have regulators who aren't interested in the health of humanity. That became very clear in the last 3 years. It should have been clear really for the last 60 years. But the reality is we have a corrupt system. We have people who are interested in making money, not improving human health and the condition. But Cardio Miracle is interested in helping the human condition, giving us our agency to make choices over our own medical treatment, and more importantly, helping free us from the tyranny of a medical system that is proving to be less and less reliable and honest and trustworthy from the past few years.
Oh, here. And one of the main benefits, I would say, of the Cardio Miracle solution is that there's no doctor slip required. You don't need to go to your local CVS or Walgreens in order to grab your Cardio Miracle. It's available for anyone to purchase. And frankly, this is one of the main things, John, that we've been talking about here in the Brian Nichols Show for, my goodness, since we started the show in 2018. And that is to stop arguing about the problems and to start solving them, right? And this is where I was so excited to have you on the show, because not only is this something that it's frankly desperately needed, but it impacts me, close to home. As you alluded to, my grandfather passed away back when I was a kid from a massive heart attack. So for me, that was a big wake up call to take your heart health seriously. It was also one of the things I kept in the back of my mind as I started my weight loss journey, where I went from 385 pounds down to 200 pounds and then started doing weightlifting and, concentrating and not having too much caffeine, not trying to do too much pre-workout, because I was always really conscious about the impact that would have on my heart. So trying to add supplements in like nitric oxide, like L-citrulline, like L-arginine. But to your point, what this solution is doing is it's helping bring all the different pieces together. And frankly, that's one of the hardest parts, is that trying to figure out, okay, I need what you mentioned, 60 different ingredients that are part of Cardio Miracle. But to buy those individually, it is either cost prohibitive, it's way too much to be focusing on every single day for a regimen. So you're creating a solution that your average person can quite literally pick up and use as soon as it arrives, at their doorstep. But number two, and I think this is the most important part, is that they're going to see the results in a very quick time turnaround, really. And then that right there speaks to where, unfortunately, we as a society, we are the instant gratification society. But with that being said, this product can actually help with some of that instant gratification, because while it's not going to be overnight, to your point, 3 weeks of taking Cardio Miracle and you're seeing the outcomes, the folks who are taking Cardio Miracle are giving you the testimonials. They're saying what it's doing for them. I'm excited to get my shipment of Cardio Miracle here at my doorstep, because I frankly think this is going to be just another tool in the tool belt to a healthy lifestyle. And, as we're talking about here in the Brian Nichols Show, like we're trying to build a future for folks where we're not having to have these petty arguments back and forth of left versus right, state versus, freedom, but rather let's just have people go out and build the solutions that are going to help change the way we do things and to make the arguments null and void. So that's why I'm so excited that you brought Cardio Miracle to not just the Brian Nichols Show audience today, but frankly to the marketplace and helping solve this problem. So I guess this is the most important question I'm going to ask, John. Where can folks from the audience go ahead and get their Cardio Miracle today?
Well, we're going to set up the Brian Nichols connection. So you'll be able to have a situation where you'll have a link so that you'll be able to get a nice discount. And then it'll also help Brian support the good work that he's getting. So you'll be able to go to cardiomiracle.com and use a promo code TBNS, The Brian Nichols Show, TBNS, and you put that in at cardiomiracle.com and you'll get a nice discount. And we'll be getting that ready for you to be hopefully shipped out in the next day or two for those who'd like to try it. We have 100% money back guarantee. We have the finest ingredients in the world, bar none. And we have the most educated people from all walks of life, including pastors, including scientists, nutritionists, cardiologists, et cetera. One of my team reached out and said, we really need to, go after these cardiologists. And I said, sorry, 80% of all revenue in the hospital system comes from cardiovascular and diabetic testing and treatment. 80%.
Wow.
80%. So you think your cardiologist who can do 2 stents for $70,000 in 25 minutes is interested in something that costs less than $3 a day to take a therapeutic dose? I don't think so. But the good news is, if they read the science, they can't argue with the science. And we'll also, you'll see on our website, cardiomiracle.com, that we have all of our scientific studies. We have our ingredient list. We have all these endorsements from all these great people. And we're just delighted to work with, dynamic. And I'm excited about, my gosh, what a story, 185 pounds. My son has gone on Cardio Miracle, and we call it intermittent fasting together because, one of the things we proved, Brian, is that Cardio Miracle facilitates intermittent fasting. So even
no kidding.
Yeah, it actually facilitates the autophagy, or the cellular recycling of waste into energy. So I've been doing all I drink is Cardio Miracle, a little bit of lemon powder just to spice it up, and ice. I do 2 smoothies a day with just ice and lemon and Cardio Miracle, and then water the rest of the time. And I've literally breezed through now. I'm within 3 hours of 6 days, and I'm shocked. And so, I'll probably, I don't know if I'll get back to my high school basketball weight of 215, Brian, but you're darn impressive with what you accomplished. And I think that's another thing. So if people want an easy diet plan, do Cardio Miracle with intermittent fasting, enjoy a nice, protein carb situation, or whatever diet fits your situation from your 12 o'clock until your 6 at night or whatever. And I think you will see, we've had people drop 30, 40, 50 pounds.
Wow.
Stayed with that regimen. And then if you really want to jumpstart and do the serious detox, you can just do a Cardio Miracle fast. And seriously, after about the second day, other than the boredom, if I was doing interviews all day long, Brian, it would be no problem. But, every time I walk by the refrigerator, it calls my name. So, and I'm sort of like, I'm having more of a mental battle than a hunger battle, but because it's like, man, I haven't had a square meal in 6 days. And so, but the reality is I could go another 6 weeks and probably be fine. But no, it's been a great journey. We're thrilled to meet you. I'm so impressed with the things you're talking about. And another time we can talk about the advantages of being an affiliate. We're not an MLM. MLMs are too expensive to have they just can't afford a product like mine because it would cost the customer so much money. But there's nothing better in the world for people in times of tough economic times than a little simple home-based business. And that could actually be part of our affiliate program or any other thing that you like. But you're really wise under this very overreach of government taxation and the cost of living for all these folks. My heart aches for seniors. My heart aches for the hardworking, 60-year-olds are getting let off their jobs and haven't saved up adequately. But let me tell you that home-based business is the last bastion of tax relief and flexibility. And we're putting programs into place where people can become nice little affiliates working under, having been introduced by the Brian Nichols Show, where we're going to be able to pay them in products so they get their product free. And then if they actually get aggressive in it, they can make a little money, but then they qualify for the thousands of dollars of tax benefits of having a home-based or your own business.
Love it. Well, if you're one of the tens of thousands of folks who listen to the Brian Nichols Show, watch the Brian Nichols Show every single month, well, here's my call to action to you folks, and this will be my final thought, is instead of going to the woke corporations, I know that word woke is tossed around loosely, but quite literally like corporations like Starbucks and spending $8, $10 on a venti latte, go ahead and invest in your health, right? Let's focus on creating not just a better health for yourself, but a better life that you can live for your family. I'm a new dad. My little girl, she's just around 11 weeks old or so. And I want to make sure I'm around for the long haul. I want to be there for the ballet classes and recitals. I want to be there for when she walks down the stage there for graduation. I want to be there to walk her down the aisle. And frankly, and this is maybe a little sad, but I have a lot of friends who over the past few years, as they've gone through very important milestones in their lives, their dads, they're not there because they had heart attacks. And it breaks my heart to see those individuals who they have that void. And I don't want to be that void for my daughter. I don't want to be that void for my family. I know the folks who are listening here and watching the show today, they don't want to be the void as well. So please just go out of their way, invest in your health, and take part in the Cardio Miracle. And we'll make sure we include the link here in the show notes, but also to reiterate, one of the most important parts, use code TBNS for a discount there at the checkout. So that's my final thoughts. John, what do you have for us to wrap things up?
Well, it's just been a delight to be with you, Brian. You're a great patriot. I'm so pleased to meet you. We want you to know that Cardio Miracle is looking for people like you to partner with and help with your missions. We have to fight together. You know, it's Father's Day coming up. You're going to enjoy that experience. I have 18 grandchildren. I have 9 children in a blended family. And obviously one of the great thrills of my life was being a father. But I'll tell you something. I would have been dead 17 years ago. I wouldn't have been around for 17 Father's Days were it not for nitric oxide. So if you really love your father or your grandfather, if you want to help your father or mother to maybe help stave off dementia, the issues with dementia, cognitive problems, autoimmune diseases, we have scientific papers that prove that Cardio Miracle is an amazing, amazing protective and support to the immune system. So if you have people you love, think about investing the right way in something that'll help them have a happier, more mobile. And then we all need to link together for freedom to fight the tyranny that's overcoming our country and speak up. And if we do so, then I think God will be our partner and we'll be able to do a lot of good.
Hear, hear. Let's heal the hearts of our fellow man, both literally and figuratively. John Helwlett, thank you for joining us today. And folks, if you got some value, which I know you did from today's episode, please go ahead and give it a share. When you do, please tag yours truly at B Nichols Liberty. And also, folks, again, link for Cardio Miracle will be in the show notes. Use code TBNS at checkout. And by the way, if you want to continue the conversation with yours truly, follow me on Twitter and on Facebook at B Nichols Liberty. And if you are joining us here on YouTube, which surprisingly, our YouTube views have been skyrocketing, so we must be doing something right in the algos. But with that being said, if you are joining us here on YouTube, well, don't leave. Stick around. We're actually going to have our conversation with Brian Gibson, Pastor Brian Gibson, not Dr. Brian Gibson, as I confused at the very end of the episode, last episode. But it was a great conversation talking about him leading the 5,000 churches who fought back during the COVID pandemic, saying, no, we're not going to have our doors shut because some arbitrary government edict. So if you want to go ahead and catch that conversation, the link should be popping up right about here. But other than that, if you want to go ahead and support us on independent media like Rumble, but also like Sovereign, Ben Swan's entity, which I am so proud to be a top creator over there. So if you guys want to go ahead and support us over on Sovereign, you'll get the show before anybody else does, actually, because we go ahead and post the show in its entirety before YouTube, before the podcast airs. So head over to Sovereign and subscribe to us there over at the B Nichols Liberty, also the Brian Nichols Show. So that's all we have for you today. And thank you, folks, for joining us. I know it was a little short of a week because I was out of town for my sister's wedding. So yeah, being able to enjoy some of those milestones. So thank you for sticking with us for only 2 episodes this week. But don't worry, starting off on Monday, we have 3 episodes ready to rock and roll for you guys. So with that being said, Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show for Cardio Miracle, John Helwlett. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.